How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Bobby Boom Show on Twitch. How's everybody doing today? So today's going to be a little bit different. We're going to talk about religion, basically kind of how I grew up, because at the end of my last live on Friday, I kind of got on the topic of that. So I figured we could just kind of keep going with that today and just talk about some shit and have some fun. It's kind of the plan, at least. So how's everybody's Sunday going so far? Been having a lot of fun. I'm also going to play some music because the hell with everything. Alright. So for a lot of those that don't know, I grew up in a very religious background for the most part. I used to eat, drink, and breathe what they call independent fundamental Baptist, and we'll go into that a little bit and the craziness behind all of that. But that's kind of what I grew up with. And with that, that's just like I said, I was brought up into that. I lived in that. And I'm not going to say I didn't know any better, but growing up, you really were not able to necessarily think for yourself, would be the way to put it. Because you were told what to believe, how to believe, and everything else. And so it was, I don't want to be a dick about it, but it was kind of like a mini cult to a very fine line degree. And I say that because they had good intentions with stuff, but they just did it a really bad way. And so that's kind of what we're going to talk about today a little bit. Hopefully, if you can hear music, it's not too loud. That is one good thing about Twitch that I do like, is you can play some music. And it's kind of nice just to have that in the background, in my opinion at least. I don't know, I just like music. Not a day goes by where I don't really listen to music. So, just bear with me on it. If it does get too loud, just let me know, and I will turn it down some. So, basically what it is the Independent Fundamental Baptists is what they call themselves. They broke off from the Southern Baptist Convention as a whole because they didn't like basically being told how to worship, what to do, and how to do certain things when it comes to serving and doing all these things. They didn't fully agree with it. So they broke off and became their own little entity called the Independent Fundamental Baptist Church. And that's kind of, at least in Oklahoma and Texas and in Kansas, I know those three states for sure. They kind of branch out a little bit into Colorado, Nebraska, Arkansas. They're kind of all over the Bible Belt. They're kind of all over. And so they broke off from the Southern Baptist Convention because they didn't like the fact, because there was they had I'm just throwing a random number because I don't know for sure. There was, you had 5-10 people at the head of the Southern Baptist Convention that basically ruled everything, and they didn't like that. And so that's when they broke off, became their own thing, and then from there, they kind of set up their own little foundation where it's kind of a similar concept that didn't make a lot of sense to me, because instead of having, 10 people telling you how to live your life, how you're supposed to worship, how you're supposed to do all this stuff, it's one pastor at every single church that kind of tells you, hey, this is how you're supposed to do it. And there's a lot of rules, there's a lot of regulations, and there's a lot of shit involved that I didn't care for. One of the bigger things was you couldn't really have facial hair, period. If you were serving the ministries like Sunday school, or you were a teacher, you were a bus worker, you were in the choir, or any sort of ministry type setting, you could not have facial hair, and you had to wear a suit and tie. Women had to wear dresses past the knees. They really couldn't have them any higher than that. Sporting events, they couldn't wear shorts. They had to wear these stupid ass things called, I think, culottes is what they were called. They were shorts, but they were like really loose, baggy shorts. For those of you that are old enough, they're like Jinko shorts. They weren't really tight. They didn't really show a figure, and it wasn't a distraction to the guys. It was weird. You kind of got shunned when you went to like restaurants with some bars. Some of the people would shun you for it and look down upon you. They believe that only the King James Bible is the one true only source of information. And their version of why they use the King James Version is really distorted. And this is kind of when I stopped agreeing with everything. Because the King James Version Bible, to them, their story is that King James, when he was translating it from the Hebrew language and whatever the other language was, I can't remember, Hebrew and, it wasn't Arabic, it was, there's two different languages. But when King James was told by God to translate it into the English text, the independent fundamental Baptists believe heavily that it's true, because anybody that would not translate it the way it's supposed to have been a proper translation, King James would do away with them and find somebody else that would translate it the way God was telling King James translate it. Well, real history goes in and shows that King James himself would murder people and straight up kill them if they didn't translate it to the way he thought it should have been translated. And so to me that was a huge red flag, and that's in the history books. And they left that out when we were younger, and they were telling us all about it. Now, I'm sorry, but anybody that's going to murder people like that because they're not translating something right, they can go pound sand. I don't care for them. I'm not going to sit there and follow that type of setting. That's not how it should be. And so that's kind of the synopsis of that religion. Also, for me personally, like, I'm not saying Christianity is wrong, but I'm not really like gung-ho Christianity is the real thing. Catholicism and the Catholic Church has been around since the beginning. And in some of the research I've done, I haven't actually been able to tie it specifically together. But in the New Testament, I believe it's in, I don't remember what book it's in. It's not Peter or James. Probably Corinthians, most likely. But when Paul is writing to the church of Corinth and all that, about how they're doing stuff wrong and that they need to be doing it this specific way, and the church that he was talking about, from what I have been able to research, actually was a Catholic style church. And that's what they were saying was, hey, you need to you're doing it wrong, you do it this way. And it's kind of was based on the Catholic Church and how they did stuff back then. So that kind of raised some questions for me. But like I said, I was never actually able to tie the Church of Corinth to Catholicism, but there's a lot of similarities. And that kind of was like, well, that's interesting. Why would they be saying that? And in the teachings as a kid, they don't tell you that. They just say, oh yeah, they have to follow Church of Corinth. And that's where we get our rules from. Well, you dig into it, kind of like with the King James thing, you dig into it, a lot of it ties back to the Church of Corinth, ties back to Catholicism and how they do things. Now, there are some things that I don't agree with the Catholic Church as well, but everybody has their own beliefs, their own theories, their own ideologies, and there's no right and there's no wrong. There isn't. But for me, personally, I believe there is something out there. 1000%, there's something out there. What? And I believe that just because you look out there, I have a hard time believing that all of this started by two ions smoking each other in outer space, and there's such a massive explosion that bam, here's all this shit. I have a very hard time wrapping my head around that because it just doesn't make sense. However, it is not impossible. It's just hard for me to wrap my head around that for the most part. And so, but there has to be something. I mean, my biggest thing with religion is there's hundreds of them in the world. Hundreds. They all believe different things. But the two biggest things that are always in common with religion today and with any mythology out there, Greek, Egyptian, Norse, the Japanese and the Chinese, their mythology, there's always a heaven and there's always a hell. So for that is the one thing I am sure of in this life, is there has to be some sort of a heaven and there has to be some sort of hell. Because every single religion out there has their own version of a heaven or a hell. It's all a little different, but they're all a heaven and a hell. So for me, I do strongly believe that. I heavily believe there's a heaven and a hell. Now, as to what causes you to go to heaven and what causes you to go to hell are two completely different things. Because again, every religion is different. The way I grew up is, if you believed on Jesus as your Savior, then no matter what you did after your life, at that moment when you set him to be your Savior, you're going to heaven no matter what. You're forever going to heaven. You can go out and murder 25 people and it doesn't matter. You can go out and blow up a house, you can blow up a building, do whatever you want. But as long as you believe him as your Savior, you're forever going to heaven. You know, and that's kind of where I'm like, I have a hard time wrapping my head around that too, because there's so much good and there's so much bad. How can believing that one thing wipe out all that? Then they go in and they explain a lot about that in the text and in the Bible, that, you know, you're cleansed because, you know, with the blood of Jesus you're cleansed, you're made whole, you're made new, and that from there nothing can ever taint that. And so for me that was hard to kind of grasp, because, you know, you could literally go out and do all this bad stuff, but no matter what, you're going to heaven. And I didn't like the thought of that, because if you're going to be an evil individual, or you're going to go out and do some harm and hate, I really feel like you should have to pay for that. But that's just me, you know. So that was kind of another issue, but I didn't really start doing a lot of this thinking until I was about 17, 18. And I kind of just started thinking for myself, pulled away from everything, and just kind of started using my own brain and was looking into things and trying to figure things out. And the more I did that, the more I disagreed with the church I was a part of. It wasn't the religion itself, it was just the church I was a part of. I did not like the fact that you had to follow these rules. And you had to do these things. There's no other way around it. And I didn't like that. Because in the Bible, if you look at some of the Old Testament text, in the Bible, you know, people came in rags and they came worthless and they came up to him, and he didn't care if you're black, green, blue, orange. He didn't care if you were rich or if you were poor. That never mattered to him. And so to me, why should that matter now? You know, why would it matter now if I rolled up and back then my Wranglers and my Pearl Snap? Why is that any different than wearing a suit and tie? And they always said, because you have to dress your best. And I didn't care for that. I didn't really, there at the end, I didn't like it. I'm like, but if you look at it, and I would argue with a few people about it, and they never liked it. But I would argue with them and debate them on it and say, listen, this is what this says, so why is it different now? You know? And if you miss a service, heaven forbid you miss the service. And the thing with that too is, you had to be at church in a building 2 times a day, twice a day on Sunday and once on Wednesday. And I argued that, because I had some other friends that I was close with, and we would just meet and do a little devotion, and that was kind of the end of it. And we'd talk about some stuff and then have a good rest of the day, and I wouldn't go to actual church. And so we debated, we talked about it, and I was like, listen, and honestly, I couldn't tell you what Bible or chapter or verse it is anymore. It's been so long since I've actually, really dove deep into it. I got a little Bible app I listen to every now and then, but not very often. But in the Old Testament, they met underneath a tree, and they had a service with Jesus at the time, and it was all fine and dandy. I'm like, so why in the hell do we have to come to a fancy building when we could do it anywhere? Because that's exactly what they did. Why is that different than now? And they never really could give me a good solid answer. They were able to give me an answer, but it wasn't really a solid, this is exactly why. It was always, well, this is just how it's always done now. And that's kind of the only answer I got. So it's kind of annoying and a pain in the butt for me, because I'm a thinker for the most part. I don't really, it takes me a while to react sometimes because I try to think. I like to make decisions off knowledge sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, about knowing shit and being able to understand it, because if I don't understand it, it's hard for me to make a decision. And so I like to know things and make sure, hey, this is the right thing. And they never could do that for me. And, the biggest thing, what really finally set me off was, this time I'd stopped going to church. I intermittently went, but I rarely ever went. But I still prayed and still read my Bible outside of that. I just never went to the actual church because to me it was a cult, and I was done with it. I wasn't doing it anymore, and so I stopped going. Well, I met my now wife online, and we talked for a while, and then I moved out. I came to visit Nevada, where I live now, and in a little bitty town in central Nevada. And I came from a college town, so this is this was the Andy Griffith Show, Mayberry, and all that. It's a one-horse town. It really is. And so with that, I was like, okay, cool. So I came back to visit, and I left. Went back home for probably about a month or so. I came back to visit again for about a week because I was only here for just a couple of days. So I came back to visit for a week and fell in love with the place. I absolutely fell in love with the place. Small town feel, there's not a stoplight in this town. There's not even a red single blinking light down Main Street. There's no lights. And so I came out here for a week, and when I went to go drive back home for about 2 states, it's an internal debate, and I don't know if it was just me, or if it was something higher, I don't know. But I was sitting there having a debate with myself, and it was my inner voice, basically, is what I'm going to go with right now, saying, hey, you need to move your stupid self up there. That's where you need to be. That's where you need to live. You don't need to be staying there in Oklahoma. You need to live there. That's where you need to be. And I argued and argued and argued and argued. I wasn't going to do it. And then when I hit about the Kansas border heading back home, that's when I'm like, okay, fine. I'm tired of having this conversation. I'm tired of arguing. That's where I need to be. That's where I'm going to go. So I went home, and I told my parents, I'm like, listen, hey, this is what was going on. This was the conversation. This was the pool I'm having. This was where I feel like I need to go, move, live, and all that. And that's what I'm going to do. And the first thing out of their mouths was, well, you need to go talk to the pastor about this. I'm like, okay, well, why do I need to talk to the preacher about a feeling or a conviction that I'm already having, and I know what I'm going to do? And they're like, well, you need to make sure that it's what God really is telling you to do. I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not talking to him to tell me something I already feel and know. Whether it's God or not, I don't know. But there's something telling me, hey, this is where you need to be. And so I'm like, well, I'm not doing that. And ever since then, I've been really turned off to the idea of that type of setting. And I don't go to church anymore. I believe that there is something out there. With everything out there, I don't know what it is. It could be God, it could be Allah, it could be Thor, it could be Hades, it could be Zeus, it could be anybody. Not really Hades, but you get what I'm saying. So, but there is something out there. And also throughout the centuries of human existence, they've always searched for a higher being, a higher purpose, a higher reason for things. And I'm not knocking science. I'm not saying science is wrong. Let's just get that out of the way. I'm not saying that at all. Sometimes I kind of like, well, maybe science is right. I'm not saying that science is wrong, but maybe science is right, and the Earth really is as old as it is, and we just die and we come back, we get reincarnated into something else. Maybe that is a possibility. It's another religious belief. So maybe it is a possibility. There's no right or wrong answers, and nobody really knows because nobody's really died, gone somewhere, and then came back to life and was like, hey, this is what I saw, this is what's right. It's all a bunch of text, it's all a bunch of stories, it's all a bunch of stuff that's been written and handed down. Now, there is the argument that Christianity really is tied into a lot of historical events and history and things like that. I'm not saying that's wrong either, because the history of Christianity, it started out as Catholicism and it kind of slowly morphed into Christianity. But it's all the same. Christianity and Catholicism is kind of the same thing. It's just a little bit different beliefs. With Catholicism, it's different. It's another kind of one of those hard ones for me to wrap my head around, because you go to a priest, you confess your sins, and then you're cleansed for that week, or for those wrongdoings, they cleanse you of those and forgive you for those, because they say that the priest or the pope is like next in line, direct line to be able to talk with God, because they do believe in Jesus Christ and Mary and God and all that. It's a little bit different for Jesus Christ, but they do believe in Mary and God and things like that, and the Holy Trinity. And so there is that aspect of it that kind of predates a lot of stuff. And a lot of people, they have a hard time, they like to believe in science because it's factual. There's evidence that proves it, so that's what a lot of people tend to believe. But then there are those who just don't agree and want a better explanation for it, I should say, and that's where you get the religion side of it all. And it's all preference. It's all what you want to believe, how you want to believe it, and everything else. And it's really more per individual than it is as a whole, in my opinion. Because I know a lot of my family members believe in Christianity. I have another relative who believes in the Jewish side of things. And he believes that because he sent a DNA sample into somewhere. May have been Ancestry, I'm not entirely sure where, but it came back his DNA, there was some Jewish aspects to it. He took that and he ran with it. And he lives and believes on the Jewish calendar and that side of things, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. The people don't understand in the Bibles, especially in like the Christianity Bibles, the King James, the NIV, NEV, and some of the others that are out there, the Jewish people are God's people. The city of Israel, that's God's people, and he will forever protect them. And it's been kind of proven throughout the last however long that no matter how many times in the Middle East, all these countries are trying to take out Israel, it never works out for them ever. They've yet been able to overthrow Israel, no matter how hard they try. So that kind of was like, hey, maybe something was here. Might be some truth to some of that. In the Bible, it talks about that when he comes back, his people, and a lot of people speculate that when he talks about his coming back, that his people are going to go with him. They are more talking about the Israelites or the Jewish people more than anybody else. And that's a big, strong belief in a lot of people. And I'm not saying they're not wrong, but I do know that in the last, at least since I've been alive, in the last 30 years, there has been several attempts on Israel to overtake it, overthrow, and destroy it, and they've all been extremely unsuccessful. And so it kind of makes you wonder a little bit of either their defenses are that amazing, or maybe there's something to that. No, you're good, Sarah. It's all good. I started a little earlier than normal. I'm probably going to honestly starting a little bit earlier than normal, just for the sake of getting a little bit more time, because at my last stream I had to cut it short, but I didn't really want to, but I kind of needed to. So I'm going to kind of start them a little bit earlier, and that way I have a little bit more time to be able to discuss and talk. That's kind of where I'm at. That's why I started a little bit earlier today. And especially talking about religion and how I grew up, I figured some of those that were going to tune in would probably have a lot to say, or some things to chime in and say. But I'm kind of just ranting about all religions right now as a whole, and whatnot, talking about Israel right now and the Jewish people, and how no matter how many times people have tried to overthrow and take out Israel, it's always been an epic fail. And that when in the Bible, when it talks about Jesus is coming back and taking his people with him, that a lot of people are speculating, saying that he's talking about the Israelites and the Jewish people that have been his people since the beginning versus everybody that believes in him, kind of thing ish. It's a speculation. It's hard to say if it's true or not, but that's kind of where we're at right now. I kind of gave a brief background about the church that I grew up in and what they believe, and some things I agree and don't agree. I didn't really go into a lot of detail on a lot of it yet, but just kind of touched the surface on it. We talked about Catholics and whatnot, and all the different types of religions, and the big, and like I said earlier, I'll say it again since you guys are here, is that with all the different religions, and Daniel said it on Friday, in every single religion out there, there's always a heaven and there's always a hell. So for me personally, I do strongly believe there is a heaven and a hell. I just don't exactly know, because every religion's always different about the means of getting to heaven and getting to hell. And so that's where I'm like, I don't really know. But for me personally, I believe in the golden rule, and that's how I live my life. And if that's not good enough, well then I'll be with the devil, I'll be with Hades, I'll be somewhere with somebody raising some hell somewhere. I always try and treat others as the way I would want to be treated. Just A, it's the humane and respectful thing to do, and B, why not? It's super freaking easy to do, and if they piss me off and go too far, well, then I'll shut them down and stop them, but no sense in being a dick or a jackass to everybody when there's really no reason for it. But that's kind of where we're at right now. Just kind of chilling, hanging out. It's kind of be a chill, relaxed stream. Just kind of whatever, How's everything going with you two? Granted, I know if some of my family ever gets on a Twitch and sees this, I know I'm going to be in a heap of trouble, but I really don't care either, because I'm honestly just spitting out the truth, and if they don't like it, then that's not on me. That's one thing I've learned over the last couple of years, is I'm caring less and less about what people have to say. and just kind of doing my own thing. And if they don't like it, then it's not on me. I'm not the one losing sleep over it, even though they might. I'm not. So it is what it is, kind of thing. But yeah, I just growing up, it was, and I said it earlier in the episode, but it was occultish. It really was. It's you couldn't listen to worldly music because it's of the devil. You could only listen to Southern gospel music that was like basically piano, maybe a trumpet, a saxophone, a harp, no drums at all, but really just smooth contemporary, or not contemporary, but Southern gospel music. If you went to like the contemporary side, like Mercy Me and I'm also drawing a blank right now, but some of those bands that have the drums and it's kind of more rocky feel to the church I was a part of, that's the devil music, and you can't listen to that because it's not influencing you the right way. The words aren't getting to you in the proper message. It's sending the wrong message and blah, 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 blah. And it's horrible and you shouldn't do it. And the one thing that really pissed me off, and I said it earlier, was the fact that if you believe Jesus Christ as your Savior, that He died on the cross and everything like that, that you were eternally going to heaven and saved. But yet, if you went to a bar, or you went to a restaurant that had a bar, or you went to a concert that wasn't a gospel concert, or you drank, or you smoked, or anything like that, you're going to hell. And they would almost damn near say that. And it's like, but according to what you just said, like no matter what I do, I'm eternally saved and going to heaven, so why does it matter? There's a lot of hypocritical stuff involved in a lot of that. The biggest thing, I got into an argument with somebody, and I actually had a lot of respect for him growing up, but we got into an argument, and it was a debate at first, and it turned into an argument because I lost my mind. I absolutely got mad. And I was at a restaurant that had a bar, and I was sitting close to the bar because that's where they seated me. I didn't choose, that's where they seated me. And they drove by, they saw my truck sitting there. That's all they did, they just saw my truck. And went to church a couple days later, whatever. And hey, I saw your truck at this restaurant that has a bar. What are you doing there? I'm eating. Like, what do you do at a restaurant, And so, well, you shouldn't be eating there. I'm like, why should I not be eating there? Please, let's do this. And I was about 17, 18, and at that point in my life, I was a very angry, hateful individual, so I didn't really care a lot. And I kind of just said what I wanted to say, and I was always ready for a fight no matter what. And so I'm like, all right, let's do this. Please tell me, why can I not eat there at this restaurant? Well, it's got a bar. I'm like, what does that have to do with anything? They said, well, because it's a bar, you're within range of it, you are enticed, and you have what did they say? You have I can't remember exactly what word he used, but you basically are susceptible to and enticed to start drinking because you're near a bar, and it's right there. It's easy to do it. And I'm like, you're kidding me, right? Like, do you realize how stupid this sounds at this point? And he gets mad about that. And he starts going off about how it's sinful because you're putting yourself in a position to where you can start sinning and doing the wrong things and going down a really bad path. So I turn around and I tell him, well, you can no longer shop at Walmart. And he goes, well, what are you talking about? I'm like, you go to Walmart, there are, at one point in Walmart, you got 20 to 30 half-dressed women showing off their body. And you can't be around that because that entices you to sleep with them and cheat on your wife, so you can no longer shop at Walmart. And boy, did he backpedal. Whoa, that's not the same. It's not the same. It's different. I'm like, no, it's the exact same thing. It's just now that I turn around and put it on you, all of a sudden, now it's not okay. And it's not the same thing. I'm like, it's the exact same thing. You're just being a dick to try to prove some point that I don't even know what it is, and I have at it. And that's kind of what really started to turn me off, was that. And then, like I said, kind of digging into King James and how he translated it from the Hebrew text and the, I don't want to say it was a Jewish text, but there was another. It was Hebrew, and I can't think of the other language it was at the time that they translated from that to English. And when I started finding out what King James actually started doing to those that were not translating it to what he thought was right, that opened up my eyes again. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not using the King James. I'm done with this church. If this is what they're gonna believe and they're gonna lie to me as a kid about how that all transpired, because maybe that's what they truly believe. Maybe they don't know the history side of it. Maybe what they told me as, he just, all I knew as a kid was when they misinterpreted the language to English, he got away with them and got somebody else to come in and that would do it right. That's what I knew as a kid. Well, like I said, you do some digging in history, you gotta do some deep digging, but you get there and you can find out he actually killed everybody that did not convert it to English the right way. So I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that either. And so that's kind of where I was at with that, and that's when I was done with it for the most part. And then let's see, hey dude, it's Daniel. Remembering Greg Leeming got into us for taking our for talking about stars because it's sacrilegious due to the idea. Yeah, gosh, so dumb. But that's how it goes, There's there was not a lot. There was a few people in that church that wouldn't even celebrate Christmas because of where the idea of the Christmas tree came from. It was a pagan worship of using the Christmas tree, so they wouldn't even allow it in their houses because the Christmas tree represents a pagan ideology of Christmas. I'm like, you're fucking kidding me, right? Then they wouldn't, when we go to our church camp and whatnot, they wouldn't allow us really to play with any deck of cards because, again, that was tied with gambling and pagan and this and that and tarot cards and everything else. And it's like, well, we won't associate with those. And I'm like, you're kidding me, right? They're a deck of cards. We're playing Go Fish. You're kidding me, right? But that was their belief and their ideology, and it's just, it ain't right. Not in my eyes, it's not right. Yeah, I remember when he really got onto us for that, and we both looked at each other like, whatever, But the funny thing is it's funny. It honestly is a funny thing when, heaven forbid, something as fictional as Star Wars, right? Something is just completely ridiculously fictional. We can't watch it, we can't talk about it, we can't have anything to do with it because the Force. And that's what a lot of them believe. You could do Star Trek. Star Trek was okay. And that was another argument I got with one of them, because the original Star Wars, or Star Trek, sorry, the women in that show, the series, pretty skimpy for that day. How now, most of the time it's normal to see girls on shows in panties and a bra or, something like that, or a really tight miniskirt. That's how it was back then, and for them that was scandalous. But yet a lot of the church kids and whatnot and the church members will watch Star Trek, but so much wishy-washy stuff that happened there. And they never really could defend certain things, and it just, I'm not a part of that. I don't care for that. I believe in the circle of life, Kuna Matata, the golden rule, and that's how I live my life. That's not good enough, I'll answer for that later. No, that's all good. You guys driving back home or what? But yeah, that's how I grew up. And like I said, I was neck deep in it. I mean, the suit, the tie, I helped with the children's ministry. I was in the choir, even though I couldn't sing for shit, still can't. I was in the choir. I worked on the bus routes. I mean, I did visitation. I did all of our shit. I was always involved in. I was always busy, always doing something. And it got to a point where when I started, like I said, I started thinking for myself. I kind of just started backing off, because a lot of it just didn't make sense to me. You know, there was a individual at the church, and this was right as I was leaving to move to Nevada, or maybe a little bit after I left. He was in a staffing position at the church, and he got caught watching pornography. Not really that huge of a deal, but in that world, that was a massive deal. Hey, from Michigan, how's it going, macaroon? I'm gonna say macaroon if that's all right. Macaroon granola, how's it going? And this is Nevada, so we're quite a ways apart. So what they did was when they found out he was doing that, at a church service, they pulled him. So today we're just talking about religion. Talked about how I was born and raised into it, and why I no longer believe in some of it, and the issues I had with it as a kid, or not as a kid, but when I hit 17, 18 years old. Some of the issues I had with it, and why I don't agree with a lot of the stuff and everything else. Quick background for you, macaroon. Basically, I grew up independent fundamental Baptist, which is another fancy way of saying just a Baptist, and they pulled away from the Southern Baptist Convention because they didn't like being told how to worship, but yet that's all they ever do anyways, because you have a pastor or a preacher that tells you what you're supposed to do. And a lot of the hypocritical sides of it and things like that they would preach but never actually practice, and tell you what you can and can't do and everything else. I was just saying that it's sad that something as fictional as Star Wars, we got in trouble for talking about, when a lot of the church members would be watching Star Trek, and the women in Star Trek wore less clothes than Leia did when Jabba the Hutt had her chained up, right? And so the Star Trek girls wore less clothes than that, and it was perfectly fine for everybody to watch that, but not for Star Wars. It's just hypocritical, stupid, that's bullshit. So that's all I was talking about that, and that he's just an absolute idiot. But going back to it, macaroon, when I hit about 17, 18, I started doing a lot of thinking for myself, kind of asking a lot of questions, challenging a lot of the leaders in the church, and they really couldn't give me a good, solid answer to what I was talking about, so I just basically slowly backed away. And I don't really necessarily believe what they always taught, but I do believe there is something out there, because in every single religion out there, in every single mythology, there's always a heaven and a hell. So to me personally, I believe strongly in that there is a heaven and there is a hell. But as far as how you get there, to me it's wide open, and there's no real telling on how. Because every single different religion and mythology, they have different reasons how and why. So I just kind of live my life by the golden rule and the whole Hakuna Matata circle of life thing, and that's just how I live my life. And if it's not good enough, then, well, I'll figure it out when I die. But just kind of talking about different random religions and things like that. So the staff member got caught watching porn on one of the church's computers or something like that. So in a church service in front of like 200-300 people, they put him up on the pulpit to confront everybody about him watching porn, and then they completely took him out of every single ministry. Basically put him on lockdown / detention. Nobody could interact with him. Nobody could talk with him until he served out his sentence, repented, and then it took like a year or two that he's finally back in the position he was in. But I'm sure there's therapy and counseling and all kinds of other shit. Oh, question. Do you think that Jesus had siblings? And if so, did he have a secret identical twin named Larry the leper who was in the tomb and was waiting to jump out and yell, "Happy Resurrection"? What? Um, that's a good question. I have never heard of that. Uh, um, I mean, it's possible he could have had siblings. I mean, they never discussed siblings after Mary had birthed him in the stable. They kind of like dropped Joseph and Mary off the map and just focused on him. So I would not be surprised if he had siblings. As far as an identical twin named Larry the leper, I don't know about that. But I said I'm pretty sure he had to have had some, but they don't ever really talk much about it. So the Bible did say that he had siblings. Okay. Was any one of them named Larry the leper? Because I'm not gonna lie, that would actually be kind of funny if he jumped out and said "Happy Resurrection." That'd be kind of interesting. Not gonna lie. Definitely not gonna lie on that one. That'd be pretty cool. But yeah, so that's kind of what some of the stuff that our church did, and there's more of a cult feeling, and they were really backwards about a lot of stuff. Like one time, my older brother and some of his friends, they were out and they poached a turkey, and it went on some guy's property, and because that individual was a church member and they missed church and everything else, they put my brother and his friends on church discipline because, you know, who knows why, but they put him on church discipline. And I couldn't even talk to my own brother at church. I couldn't talk to any of his friends at church for like months. And it's like, you're fucking kidding me, right? Larry the cucumber. that was a good VeggieTales. Well, what was that, Daniel? Was it Jonah? VeggieTales Jonah or whatever you used to watch all the time. Yeah, I don't remember exactly what he was saying, but because the Force is a worldly belief, basically is kind of where he was hinting around. We should not really be into that because it's a worldly belief. It's of the world, like yin and yang. It's of the world, and it's not of God. So heaven forbid, kind of thing. That's what that was all about. But yeah, some crazy shit. So we think about Charles Darwin, evolution of animals. I don't think that the birds evolved from feathered dinosaurs. It must have been birds from turtles. A beak is a beak is a beak. Now, see the whole thing with the evolution of animals. Here's my thought on that. My thought is if we did legit come from monkeys, which I'm not saying we didn't because apes and the similarities between humans and monkeys is damn near one and the fucking same. I mean, if you change up the DNA, they wouldn't be able to tell either apart, honestly. But my thought process, and this is just my thought, is if we did evolve from monkeys, why were there no depictions of like half monkey, half human? There's no real true stories in the cave paintings and the history books about that. And you know, my thought was if things are still evolving, wouldn't there be some remnants of people that have, you know, like are a little bit monkey? If that makes any sense to anybody? That's kind of my thought on that. I mean, birds could have evolved from feathered dinosaurs, but that's a huge de-evolution, I will say, because the feathered dinosaurs were so massive and our birds are so freaking tiny. I don't know, man. I mean, yeah, you got a turtle beak, so I could see that, but how do you go from fat and round to little and flying, you know what I mean? A beak is a beak is a beak. That is true, though. I will give you that. You know, and that's my thing, is there's so many unknowns. There really, truly is. I don't think that the real prime driver of evolution is mutation. I think that evolution is just a fancy word for baby making across. Nah, you know, I never thought of that. actually could be going across. Hey, remember that time I almost got kicked out of youth group because I kissed a girl? Had to tell the youth pastor I'm not getting in front of the church, but I talked to her dad about it. Shit was crazy. I kind of figured it was you, Daniel, since it says Avenging Angel. That's kind of your thing. So, kind of figured that, by the way. Remember that? I remember that. Remember at church camp, dude, when I was cussing people out, like, out in the middle of everybody in church camp, and then I broke Luke's eye socket because he pissed me off. And then my older brother, Jeremy, he threatened to whoop my ass in front of everybody, and I'm sitting there in front of the pastor's kid and everybody. I'm, like, dropping the F like it's nobody's business. As far as baby making it across species lines, I could see that happening. I really honestly could. It would be kind of weird as to how that could have done, but it could have. The one I have heard that I refuse to believe is I had a girl, she would have been in my 5th grade. No. I take that back, it would not have been 5th. It would have been 6th or 7th grade. She truly believed that we evolved from what was it? It was oh my gosh, what was that now? It was something super teeny and tiny. I don't remember now. Basically, like a little bitty germ is what it was. Like teeny tiny germ is what we evolved from. And I was like, yeah, I don't believe that. But I know there has been thought of us even evolving from like tadpoles into humans. You know, I have heard a lot about that. I think the wildebeest is a cross between the moose and the deer. Now that, yeah, actually I'll give you that. It probably is. I wouldn't be really surprised. I mean, there are a lot of animals if you look at them. You know, you'd think, okay, somehow they're like a zebra. Like, it's crossed with something, but what? You know what I mean? And it's a horse or a donkey mixed with something else that gives it the stripes. My opinion, at least. I don't, you know. As far as that goes, yeah, I believe that. I just have a hard time believing that with, like, monkeys and humans. I'm not saying we didn't, because like I said, the molecular similarities is mind-boggling. And the only real difference is we don't throw our own shit and pick these off each other, you know. Amoebas, that's right. Yep, thank you, Daniel. Amoebas. That we evolved from amoebas. But, you know, the only real big difference between monkeys and us is we don't throw our shit and we don't, like, pick bugs off of each other and eat them. To me, that's the biggest difference. But again, it's one of those. It's hard to say. And actually, I'm gonna take off the chat box just because I don't need it. I don't know if it's driving you guys nuts, but I know you guys will have the chat, and I can see it on mine, so I'm gonna take it off. And I'm going to actually, in doing that, I'm gonna make a few quick changes, so just bear with me. Let's do this here. I read an article that said that leprosy is passed to humans through amoebas. Shit like that, I would not be surprised, Macaroon. It really would not surprise me at all. There's a lot of things that we have contracted from things that have come from stuff similar to that. You know, like the Black Death was because of, you know, rats carrying whatever disease it was. And it was a little bitty microscopic disease, and it, like, took out a lot of people back then. So I honestly would not disagree with that, honestly. I could easily see that. You know, like, ringworms are passed from cats to humans as well. You know, I mean, we get a lot of our shit from animals sometimes through various means of contacts, whether it's ingesting that's not fully cooked, and you can get tapeworms, you can get all kinds of stuff from different diseases like cat scratch fever, certain things like that. You know, you can get rabies from dogs, you can get rabies from raccoons, you can get rabies from possums, you can get, it's just so much shit. We may not throw shit anymore, but people be eating other people, booty holes, so close enough. I feel like they're animal crossbred, but not evolved. Yeah, see, that's kind of where I'm at with that. Is I don't think it's evolution, but if you actually think about it, though, it could be a form of evolution, because when you crossbreed them, you get this thing, and then from there it evolves into its own species. So I mean, in a roundabout way, it could be evolution slash crossbreeding. Fleas, that's right. Thank you, fleas. I knew it was something stupid and small. I think that the COVID-19 is going to be mutate and merge with the Zika, because both are bats. Don't move to Zika virus epicenters of South Texas and South Florida. Now, COVID-19, that is a whole conspiracy theory that I would love to talk about. I believed initially that it came from bats. I honestly, truly did. Until I saw a patent on it that was filed July of 2015. The lab in China where COVID came from. There was a lab there that filed a petition to patent COVID-19 virus and the multiple different strands that are attached to it. And in November of 2019, it was approved and it was patented. So when I saw that and read that, I'm like, okay, this is not from a bat. To me, it's man-made virus. They said that in the patent that they applied for, it stated that this is a biochemical warfare against. It was a biochemical warfare weapon against something. I can't remember exactly what. I'll have to go back and reread it. And I'm a conspiracy theorist, macaroon, so I'm gonna put that out there. I love conspiracies. The conspiracy is they actually do have multiple vaccines for the like 3 different strains of Zika virus that's out there, but they refuse to put it out because it's a lot like the flu vaccine. There's like 3 different strands of the flu, and every year they literally roll a dice, say, okay, this year it could be this, so we're gonna pump out that vaccine. And almost every single year they get it wrong. It's never the right vaccine for that strain of flu that comes out. And it's kind of the same for the Zika virus, so they don't ever use it. But also Zika's kind of been dead for a while until it's gonna hop back up, because COVID's dying out now, so now it's the murder hornets, and then seen a bunch of memes and pictures about monkey snipers and all kinds of other shit about it. I don't buy that, because the bat viruses of Asia are very different than the bat viruses of North and South America. I mean, I'm sure they probably are. That I don't know for sure, so I'm not going to pretend like I know that. The only thing I know is I believed it was from a bat up until I read the patent. And let me see if I can find it. And the patent, I don't like it. They always mutate, and it's always changing. It's always different. And the best thing they can do is just guess, and it always epically fails, in my opinion, because everybody gets sick, and more people die from the flu every year than just about anything. It seems like. And don't quote me on that, but it seems like it. Let's see here. let me look here. I'm trying to find that patent, so just bear with me a minute. Let me go to history, type in patent. Alright, so I'm going to go to the web, and I'll post this in there because I want everyone to kind of see what I'm looking at. patents.ustia.com. And I'll do a screen share as well because I want everybody to understand that, you know, just see what I see and see what they think. I used to have the patent number, but I don't remember what in the living hell happened to it. Give me just a minute here. I do apologize. I'm gonna go ahead and start the screen share anyways, just to help out here. They say too that the COVID was used to deter Chinese riots, but they didn't think it spread like it did. That's a lot of what I have researched into it. Is that's what it started out as. Bat virus population of Asia are much worse because they have larger bats. Like, oh yeah, the fruit bats are actually really, really, really big. All right, here you go. Patent number. All right, let's do this. Fruit bats can get as large as a hot. Jeez, I didn't know they could get that big. Damn, that's massive. 101300701. Okay, let's do this. All right, so this here is the patent for the coronavirus, right? Okay, so I'm going to kind of read this to everybody. I'm going to go to the very bottom first, and I want you guys to see what I was talking about here. So here's the patent history right here. Here's the number. It was a grant filed in July of 2023 of 2015. It was actually dated and accepted the 20th of 2018. The primary examiner was Bao Ku, and here are the inventors of it. And here is the institute where supposedly it was supposed to go to. So that right there in and of itself kind of told me, all right, this is no longer in fact because of an animal. This has been in the lab. They wanted a grant for it way back then, and I don't buy it. I do not buy the fact that it was from a bat. Now, it could be, but I have a hard time with that. Because I'll show you that here, because it says right here, the background of the invention and the field of it. Let's see the background. So the IBV, aviation infectious bronchitis, is an etiological agent of the infectious bronchitis. It's highly infectious and contagious pathogen of domestic fowl that replicates primarily in the respiratory tract, but also in the epithelial cells of the gut, kidney, and oviduct. So clinical signs of the IB include sneezing, tracheorales, nasal discharge, wheezing. Meat-type birds have reduced weight gain, whilst egg-laying birds lay fewer eggs and produce poor quality eggs. The respiratory infection and this is all just the bronchitis. And this is just kind of the basis of bronchitis. And see, there is a need in the industry to develop vaccines which are suitable for use in OVO in order to improve the efficiency and cost effectiveness of vaccine programs. A major challenge associated with an OVO vaccination is that the virus must be capable of replicating the presence of maternally derived antibodies against the virus without being pathogenic or embryo. So the current vaccines for IBV are derived following multiple passage in embryonated eggs, result in viruses which reduce pathogenicity for chickens so that they can be used as live attenuated vaccines. Okay? So we can keep coming further down. Let me look here. Okay, here we go. So here we get into more descriptions. Hey, 20HZ. I was talking about religious and kind of how I grew up, and now it kind of morphed into the coronavirus and some of the things like that. It's just the name. Yeah, it is a group of viruses, but here it talks about some aspects that I thought kind of blew my mind. I just feel like sometimes the medical field is just putting things out not because it works, but to keep people from panic, and it could be. It really, honestly, could be. So here's just the coronavirus. It's gamma coronavirus is a genus of animal virus belonging to the family of the coronaviridi. Coronaviruses are enveloped viruses with the positive sense single-strand RNA genome and a helical symmetry, which I honestly don't understand what that a lot means, but it is what it is. So the coronavirus primarily infect the upper respiratory or gastrointestinal tract of mammals and birds. 5 to 6 different currently known strands of coronavirus infect humans. The most publicized human coronavirus, SARS, which came out quite a few years ago, which causes severe acute respiratory syndrome, has a unique pathogenesis because it causes both upper and lower respiratory tract infections and can also use gastroenteritis, however you want to say that. MERS, the Middle East respiratory syndrome, actually came out also quite a few years ago. And that's a lower respiratory tract infection in humans. So the coronaviruses are believed to cause a significant percentage of all common colds in human adults. So that right there, when I read this, blew me away. If you have a cold, per this, you could have a coronavirus. Because there's so many of them. And that's what pisses me off with this. Like, and when I scroll down here, you'll see in a minute, there are different variations you have. So I think it's not near as bad as they're making it out to be. I honestly don't. Coronavirus has been around for a very long time. They have made the patent for it, and then they did a bunch of testing into it as well. The virus itself does not kill you. It can if you have severe lung problems because it attacks your lungs. It attacks the respiratory side. It can make you deathly sick. Oh wow, camels? That's crazy. I wouldn't be surprised though. The coronavirus itself, from what this has said, is that it centers around birds and other similar type of animals, and that I believe it said it can kill you, but there's underlying causes as to how it kills you. Because when it first came out, the biggest, it spreads super fucking fast. If you're older in age and if you already have severe health issues as it is, you don't have a strong immune system, you don't have good strong lungs, you're always sick prior to this, yes, it can kill you. But it's not the main source that kills you. There's always underlying causes that contribute to the virus killing you. Because if you get if it hits you, and if you're a healthy individual, most healthy people that have gotten the virus have been cured in the matter of a week. And all it is they let it ride its course. It takes about a week, and then you're done. There are some people I knew that I worked with back in November and December who were really sick. Like, almost like the flu. Almost. And they were sick for probably about a week and a half, and then they were done, and they were fine. If you are not healthy human being, then your chances of, when you catch it, of being really sick or dying are increased. I'm not saying that coronavirus won't kill you. It's not the main reason why people are dying. Yeah, I mean, it spreads like wildfire. It's a cold. So if you sneeze, if anything like that, or you're talking with somebody and you sneeze in the vicinity, they're gonna catch it. It's easily spreadable, and we found that out in the first couple of days when holy shit, it went haywire. And it didn't take long. But for me personally, if somebody dies from this and they're saying it's COVID, there's an underlying cause that the COVID just ramped up, and that's what killed them. I do not believe the COVID just comes in and kills somebody. I don't believe there's an underlying cause. AIDS, yeah, exactly. Kind of like AIDS. AIDS will slowly kill you over time, but if you are infected with it and you contract it, it will take time to kill you, but eventually it will get you. Yeah, but if COVID-19 mutates, emerges with Zika virus, then it will spread to humans through mosquitoes, and the major symptom of Zika is that it puts you in a coma, and COVID-19 is... Yes, I do agree with you on that, Macaroon. I do honestly believe you are right on that. If it mutates and merges with Zika, which I don't personally see that happening unless it's helped, I should say. But then again, it could, because if a mosquito gets in you and it has Zika and it pulls out your blood and it mixes in the mosquito, it could. Zika virus is pretty dangerous. I'm not saying Zika is not, because it will put you in a coma, and it can put you in a coma, and it can kill you. But as long as COVID-19 stays COVID-19, we're going to be fine. 20 in my country, they aren't doing quarantine at all. There's actually quite a few countries that haven't done a single quarantine, and they don't have a lot of deaths. They have a lot of infected, but the deaths aren't very high. And those countries that are not doing a quarantine, the virus makes its course and then it's done. And they're back to normal. I will say this is not the end of the virus. It is absolutely not the end. Come the fall, all this shit's gonna ramp up one more time in the fall. I guarantee you. It's gonna come back like a hurricane in the fall, and it's gonna be the same shit we're in right now. And it doesn't matter what's going on. If that happens, then the second wave could be literally the living end. It could. Yeah, it's not. This is not the end of it. And no, that's the same thing I've heard as well. There. See, here's my thing with the news. I have a hard time believing in the media just about almost anything anymore. Whatever company or whatever political party or whatever billionaire has bought out that news, they're going to put out whatever they're told to put out. They're not going to be reporting real and accurate news. And that is all the way from CNN to Fox News. I don't care for any of it. That's my personal belief and my opinion. I always do research. I look at things. I try and figure out what's going on, this and that. COVID-19 is not heat resistant. So it's going to die out, and it's going to be dying out really soon because summer's coming. It's pretty much here in most states or most countries. It's already here. So it's going to die out. And then the fall, it's going to start getting cold again. And from fall to spring again, it's just going to ramp right back up. And it's going to do that for a while until everybody's body is able to kind of get used to it. You know, my biggest thing that I've learned from my body is I haven't had the flu shot since 2009. I haven't had the flu since 2009. Every year during the flu season, I'll have like 3 days where I feel like just kind of run down, and that's it. It's only typically 2 to 3 days. And I'm perfectly fine the rest of the time, while everybody else who gets the flu shot, they're down for weeks on end sometimes because they just feel like death. The news has said that the new symptoms of the second strand is toxic shock syndrome in young kids. Which, if that's true, that is not good. And I say if that's true. Every time this thing dies down, something traumatic happens and it's ramped back up again every single freaking time. It is more mild in warmer, humid climates. That's why it's going to be dying out. Like I said, that's why it's going to be dying out really soon, because it's getting warm and everything else. Well, AIDS, it's an immune system killer, but because your immune system is gone, you can contract. Yeah. That's the thing about AIDS. It wipes out your immune system. And that's why a lot of people with AIDS, they don't really typically live. Sometimes they don't live for a very long time, and that's why there's no cure for AIDS. They can kind of sort of slow it down, the process, but not so much. But if you have any, like if you have autoimmune, or if you have AIDS, or if you have, if you have what they call smoker's lungs, or if you're just a sickly son of a bitch and you catch COVID, the chances of you dying are pretty damn decently good. If you don't have most of those things and you're healthy and you rarely get sick, you're active and all this, you're typically not going to die from it. You will feel like you have the flu, and you're going to be down for probably a week or two, but then you'll be right back up to normal. They describe toxic shock syndrome is that the virus attacks all the internal organs like dominoes. If that that would suck so bad. I honestly haven't heard that in the news that I have been watching, but that doesn't mean it. It may not be here where I'm at in Nevada. It could be other places, but like I said, I do know that when this every single time this dies down, it ramps back up. They come out with something else. There's always something new that puts the fear back in everybody, and it's like, holy shit, we're all gonna die. It started dying out again really, really bad. Like, nobody cares much about it more. States are starting to open up. Everything's starting to go back to normal. And now we have, murder hornets from freaking Asia? Are you kidding me? Like, that's what they're going to come out with? And, yeah, those can kill you if they get you, and they get you enough times. But I've seen some pretty cool videos of a praying mantis take one out, a bunch of honeybees take one out, so come on, people. I'm pretty sure they've been around the United States for a while, but they need something. But no, I'll have to look in the toxic shock syndrome, because that is definitely new to me. So I will definitely be looking into that. But going back to the patent, there are also two types of, there's canine. So here we go. You got canine coronavirus, feline coronavirus, human porcine transmissible gastroenteritis, human coronavirus again. So there's two humans. That's alpha. In beta, you have bovine, canine, another human, so that's three human. You have mouse hepatitis, porcine hemagglutinating, whatever that is. You have rat coronavirus, severe acute rat SARS. You have MERS, and gamma, you have infectious bronchitis. You have turkey coronavirus, pheasant, guinea fowl, and delta, you have blueball thrush, muna, and porcine. So there's only three human coronavirus here. If you include the infectious bronchitis, there's four. And if you count SARS and MERS, because that has happened, there's a total of 7 in this list. And the rest of them are all different types of animals. Yes, we can kind of contract them from the animals. But more than likely, you're going to get the bronchitis. Is the most popular human coronavirus you're going to get is the infectious bronchitis. So if you've ever had bronchitis in your life, you've had the virus. You've had a form of the coronavirus. It's that simple. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand is this COVID-19, they're just saying, oh, it's coronavirus. Well, which fucking one is it? They say, well, bats, but that's not giving us any information. They found one murder hornet in the U.S. and it was dead. So, the murder hornets can go kiss their own ass. The governments need to get on the spraying programs to get rid of mosquito populations where the Zika virus epicenters are before the super virus hits, before the super virus hot zone starts this summer. I would say I fully agree with you. They really should. I'm looking into buying a sailboat to get away from the mosquitoes. Do it. Um, the government the government should already be doing some of the shit, but the government doesn't really care. And I say this because A, I'm a conspiracy nut, but B, um, the coronavirus could have been stopped a long time ago. Zika, they could have cracked down on Zika a long time ago if they would have get these big ass fucking airplanes and spray the fucking country with this killer and kill everything, right? I got sick after being bitten by a bunch of mosquitoes in Greece. Ouch. How sick though? Like deathbed sick or what? Like stomach sick? Murder hornet, I think you mean tracker jackers.
You don't get to enjoy that. You don't watch Hunger Games. You don't get to enjoy that.
It's just funny, tracker jackers, because my mind would go somewhere else. Pretty sick, not deathbed sick. So, I mean, it sucks. I mean, you probably could have had the Zika then. I mean, honestly, there's a chance because a bunch of mosquitoes and you got pretty sick. There is a chance. But the government, if they're going to let these viruses run rampant, they have their reasons, they have their purpose for it. And I'm going to get on this topic a little bit because our government could have done a lot to prevent the coronavirus. And I say this because when the coronavirus started going big in China, it could have been West Nile too. I forgot about West Nile. It could have been a number of things. Oh, good grief. You and Alicia both, I swear. When the coronavirus first started getting rampant in China, our media kept it silent. They never reported anything on it for a long time because it started in China right around October, November is when it started for China. Now, does anybody else remember right around October, November, what was going on in our country at the time? Anybody have any idea? I'll give it just a second and then I'll give the answer. But does anybody have any idea nationally what was going on that took over every single news headline in the country around that time? So in the United States, around October, November, was the impeachment process for President Donald Trump. And that's all everybody focused on. It was the impeachment, the impeachment, the impeachment, the impeachment. And I believe it was a sham from the very beginning, from the get-go. But if they would have stopped the impeachment process when they noticed what was going on in China and said, hey, let's shut this shit down. We got a problem. There's a problem in China, and we get like 95% of our shit from China. We need to start doing something now. And if any one of you were super fucking sick November, December, January, guess what? You had the coronavirus. It was in the United States long before they ever reported it. A lot of people in the United States alone were really sick November and December. And if you were really sick then, and the only thing that you went to the doctors and they did every test possible, and the only thing they could tell you was it's a severe upper respiratory infection, guess what? You had the virus. And guess what? If you're still here today, you damn survived it. So, but they could have stopped it a lot sooner had they just got over their little pity party. Everybody in government got over their little fucking pity party of an impeachment and focused on the well-being of the actual nation. They could have fucking stopped it. Well, did you hear about the congressman named Justin Amash, who is a critic of Trump, who quit the Republican Party? I have not. I read a news article that said he is starting an exploration committee to run for president on the Libertarian Party. Now, that we need a good Libertarian, for sure. Holy shit, we need a good Libertarian. We haven't had a good one in a long time. So that would be awesome. If Justin Amash is good. I don't know that name, so I will do some digging into it. But that would be cool. But if they would have just stopped it, all of people here in Michigan are excited. Nice, okay. Yeah, I got a buddy that lives up there too. But I will do some digging into him for sure. Because like I said, we haven't had a good libertarian in since I've been alive. They haven't really had anybody worth running or voting on as a libertarian, so that would be really cool. Because that's where I'm at. I don't really care for Republicans. I don't really care for Democrats. I'm more of in the middle of a libertarian just because of the fact that the Republicans and the Democrats are so blown up out of proportion. They only give a fuck about themselves. They only care about the money. They only care about the votes. They only care about themselves. They don't really care about the American people. So I'm back. My nose started bleeding. Oh shit. Well, hopefully you're not. Hopefully you got it controlled there. The only person who could have stopped it with a child ban. Well, and that's the thing too, is when he started it, and then every single Democrat out there was like, "Oh, how dare you? That's racist." And he's like, "Listen, something's going on. Let's stop this." I just wish they could have done it sooner, because if he could have done it sooner, but that's what they're doing. That's all it is. It's all it is a coup against Trump. And I'm not saying Trump, he's not that great of a president. He's done some decent things, but he's still he's a dipshit. All right, hey, I appreciate the follow there, 20. Have a good rest of your day, man, or woman, whatever you are. I apologize. I do a lot of conspiracies on my Twitch, and a lot of just random shit. My Facebook as well. If you have Facebook, Bobby Boom Show on Facebook as well. Hit the like, hit the follow there. I do a lot more content there as well. I kind of split it up between Twitch and Facebook. But I appreciate it. Have a good evening or rest of your day, evening, morning, wherever you're at. But no, it's a complete coup against Trump. And the problem is because of the impeachment, his hands were tied. He really couldn't do anything. And the Democrats did not. That just to me proves the Democrats don't care about the safety of the country, because they could have shut it down. They could have stopped it. They could have left it alone, controlled this, and then go back at the end of it and try the impeachment. Like, I don't care if they impeach him. I don't care if they try impeachment. Try to impeach him. But fuck, when there's a virus breaking out in China, and that's where we get most of our shit, you would think, hey, maybe we should stop this, and then let's go and shut everything down, isolate the country, and then we can keep it safe there. But no, I don't think that the military would go along with the coup against Trump, because the Democrats have the Southern election strategy that the U.S. military hates. Yes. Well, and also along that side, the president, no matter who it is, the president is their commander-in-chief, so the military kind of has to follow the president's orders. So, like, they're not gonna do that. It's not gonna happen at all. But no, as far as the virus, it's oh, wrong button. Well, not you guys see that, yeah. When I do my conspiracies. But that would mean that the political system would have to sacrifice something, money, power, or what have you. That's why things are always going to be on there. And it is. And the shitty thing is, and that's what I'm going to do on my Twitch, I'm going to start kind of hitting the Constitution and the laws, because by the Constitution, Bill of Rights, everything, Congress and the president and every single Congress member works for us. We don't work for them. They have kept this country divided for so long, because if the United States as a whole stands together and says, fuck all of you, the government can't do anything about it. If we stand up and take our government back, there is not a single thing they can do, because the Constitution was written for that purpose. Why in the world do you think every single Democratic individual in Congress is doing every single thing they can to take our guns from us. Because they know if we are armed, we are dangerous. Because we can stand up and say, fuck you, you're not doing this, and they have to do it. If they take our guns away and we stand up to them and do something, they're just going to laugh because we have nothing. That is why they are so hell-bent on taking our guns and our freedoms away. That is something I will believe and nobody will ever be able to change my mind on. The same thing happened with Hitler, and the same thing is happening now. Hitler took every source of power away from the German people, took their weapons, took their mouths, took their speeches, took everything, and look at what he did. All because he took their freedom of their speech and he took their weapons away. Now look at us. They have taken away our freedom of speech. We no longer have the freedom to say whatever the hell we want without some sort of ramification, and they are hell-bent on taking our guns away, and they're halfway there. Next thing you know, it's gonna be like Hitler. I think that Trump is going to end up defecting to Saudi Arabia on the last day of the election to avoid prosecution. After his term is done, he's going to just walk off the Air Force One on the tarmac. I mean, it's possible, man. That's awesome. He'll have one more term. He'll get reelected. And so they know nobody's going to vote for Bernie. I mean, not Bernie, but yeah, Bernie. Which is another huge problem I have because he had, without molesting, he's tried, I should say, the way he grabs the young girls on national television. He's tried to kiss a few of them. He's done some of the things he's done with them. How is that man still walking around? If any one of us here would do that, we would be in jail. Hands down, without even skipping a beat. So he is not going to win the presidential. He's not going to win. Trump will win this time, and then I hope we have another good somebody that actually cares more about the United States than Trump does to come in to and hopefully wins. If it's a Democrat, then it's a Democrat. But I honestly think that somebody other than Trump, after his third term, somebody that cares more about the U.S. than Trump does, I think will be okay. I think that Biden gets a lock on the U.S. Senate, then he's going to pick Hillary for his... Yeah, and then we're all screwed. Look at Castro. Yeah, Castro... Yeah, that's a whole nother thing. But I will say that is the end of the live today. I ran a little bit longer than normal. So I appreciate each and every one of you for coming in. Hit that follow, hit that like, turn on the notifications. If you have a Facebook, I do have a Bobby Boom Show on Facebook as well. And come there, enjoy it, hang out, have a good time. I appreciate each and every one of you for coming in today and talking. And each and every one of you have a great rest of your day. And stay safe out there. And remember, a short fuse never ends well.